There is a song being sung inside the city. You can hear it from the wall voices rising and falling in the practiced way of men who have sung together for years. It is a song about stillness, about a God who is a refuge, a fortress, a help that arrives the moment trouble does. The singers know every word, and just beyond them, close enough to see the smoke of their cook fires, an army is camped in the dust. This is the strange thing nobody tells you about the most peaceful verse in the Bible. It was not written in a quiet room. It was not whispered over a candle. It was sung by men who could hear an empire breathing outside their gate, and at the center of their song sits a line you have almost certainly read wrong. You have seen it. On a coffee mug, on a phone screen at the end of a hard day, stitched onto a pillow printed under a photo of a still lake at sunrise. Be still and know that I am God. We have turned it into the gentlest sentence in Scripture, a slow exhale, a reminder to slow down, light something that smells nice, and let the tension drain out of your shoulders. Here's what most people miss. That is almost the opposite of what the word means. The verse is Psalm 46, verse 10, and the Hebrew behind be still is a word that has nothing to do with a still lake. It is a battlefield word. A word you say to a soldier whose knuckles have gone white around the hilt of a sword. The word is harpu, and by the end of this, you will never read that verse on a pillow the same way again. So stay with me, because to understand what that word is actually commanding you, have to understand what was standing outside the wall. This is not a verse about quiet. It is not a verse about calm. It is not a verse about candles and deep breathing and 10 minutes to yourself. It is a verse about the single hardest thing a frightened person can be asked to do, and the people who first heard it were as frightened as people get. Picture the city. The walls are crowded. Mothers are up there with their children because there is nowhere safer to put them. And down below, an officer of the most powerful army on earth has ridden close, and he is shouting. Not in a foreign tongue they can ignore. He is shouting in their own language on purpose, so that every farmer and every child and every exhausted soldier on that wall understands exactly what he is promising to do to them. He wants them to feel it. He wants the fear to do his work before a single arrow flies. And inside that noise, that real and present terror, the song says, be still. You can feel the contradiction, can't you? How does anyone be still with that at the gate? How do you lower your hands while the threat is still standing? Right there, still breathing, still shouting. Hold that question, because it is the whole point of this song, and the answer is not the one printed on the mug. The men singing it were called the sons of Korah, temple musicians, gatekeepers, and here is a detail that will matter more than it seems. Right now, they were descended from a man named Korah, who once stood against Moses in the desert, and the ground opened and swallowed him whole. That family line had every reason to be afraid of standing in the wrong place at the wrong moment. And yet, it is their name on the song that tells a terrified city to stop fighting. We are going to walk back through 3 different moments where God told people point blank to stop. And every single time he was about to do something they could never have done themselves. So let's open the word up. The Hebrew is harpu. It comes from a root raphah, and the root does not mean relax. It means to sink, to slacken, to let drop, to go limp. It is the word you would use for a hand that has been gripping something so hard for so long that the fingers have locked, and then finally they let go. The grip releases. The hand falls open. That is what the verse is actually saying. Not feel peaceful. Not calm down. It is saying drop your hands. Stop striving. Let go of the thing you have been white-knuckling because you were never strong enough to hold it anyway. Say that version out loud and the whole song changes. Let go and know that I am God. Suddenly, it is not a sentence for a lazy Sunday morning. It is a sentence for the worst night of your life. And there's a second word here worth catching. Know that I am God. The word for know is yada, And in Hebrew, that is not the knowing of a fact you read once. It is the knowing of experience to find something out for yourself, usually the hard way, usually in the middle of it. God is not asking the city to agree with a theological statement. He is saying, drop your hands, and you will find out who I am. You will learn it the way you only learn things when there is no backup plan left. Here's the part nobody tells you, though. This command, stop fighting. I've got this is not unique to Psalm 46. It is a pattern. It runs all through the story like a thread, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Go back to the sea. A whole people just walked out of slavery or pinned against the water. Behind them, the dust is rising, the most advanced army of the age chariots and horsemen closing fast. There is water in front, death behind, and nowhere to run. And the people do the only thing terrified people know how to do. They panic. They turn on Moses. Better to have stayed slaves than to die out here, they tell him. And Moses says something that should not work. He tells them to stop. Don't run. Don't fight. Stand still and watch. The Lord will do the fighting. You only have to be quiet. Imagine being told that. The enemy is bearing down, and your leader's strategy is stand there. Lower your hands. You know what happened next. The sea opened. The thing they could never have done for themselves was done in front of them while they stood still and watched. That is raphah in action centuries before the song was written. The hand drops. God moves. Now watch what happens next, because it happens again. Generations later, a king named Jehoshaphat gets word that 3 armies have allied against him and are already on the march. He does the math. He cannot win this. So he gathers the whole nation, men, women, the little ones, all of them standing in the courtyard, and instead of mustering for battle, they wait. And the answer comes back through a prophet. And it is almost funny how it echoes the sea. You will not need to fight this battle. Take your positions. Stand still. Watch. So the army of Judah marches out the next morning to meet 3 armies with singers in the front. Not soldiers, singers. By the time they reach the battlefield, the enemy armies have turned on each other and destroyed themselves. Judah never lifts a sword. They lower their hands and they find out who God is, yada the hard way, in the middle of it. 2 moments. 2 impossible threats. The same command underneath both, stop striving. I will fight for you. If this is landing for you, if you've ever been pinned against a sea of your own, hang on. Because there's a 3rd moment coming, and it's the one the whole song was built around. But first, do me a quick favor. If a channel that takes the Bible seriously line by line, word by word, is something you want more of, subscribe. It genuinely helps these go further. And tell me in the comments, I'll have a real question for you at the end. Now, the 3rd moment. The one happening right outside that wall while the sons of Korah sing. The king inside the city is named Hezekiah, and the army outside is not just any army. It is Assyria, the empire that has spent years swallowing nations whole, one fortified city after another, and leaving nothing standing behind it. Their king Sennacherib has already taken dozens of walled towns across Judah. Jerusalem is the last one standing. By every measure that a soldier on that wall could count, it is over, and the empire knows it. That officer at the wall, the one shouting in the people's own language, he is not bluffing. He lists the other cities. He names their gods, the ones that did not save them, and he asks the obvious crushing question, what makes you think yours is any different? Surrender. Come out. Your God cannot save you any more than theirs could. This is the noise the song was sung into. This is what "Be Still" was answered to. And here is what Hezekiah does. He does not send a clever reply. He does not match threat for threat. He takes the empire's letter, the actual letter full of taunts, and he carries it into the temple, and he spreads it open in front of God, as if to say, you read it. I have no answer for this. I'm dropping my hands. The prophet Isaiah sends word back, and it lands exactly where the sea landed, exactly where the courtyard landed. Don't answer the noise. Don't go out. Stand still. This army will not enter the city, will not shoot an arrow over the wall. Wait, and then comes the night. The Bible tells it plainly, almost quietly. In the night, the threat that no human army in the region could stop was stopped. By morning, the camp that had filled the valley with smoke and shouting was silent. The siege that should have ended Jerusalem simply ended. Sennacherib turned and went home. Now here is where it gets remarkable, and where you do not have to take only the Bible's word for it. We have Sennacherib's own record. Carved into clay in his own royal annals, the king of Assyria boasts about this very campaign. He brags that he shut Hezekiah up inside Jerusalem like a caged bird. It is a vivid line, and it is meant to sound like a victory. But read the whole thing and you notice something strange. This is a king who recorded every conquest he ever made, who never missed a chance to describe a city falling. And about Jerusalem, about the bird in the cage, he never says he took it. The annals describe the trap. And then, on the one city that mattered most, they go quiet. The conqueror's own scorecard simply stops. A caged bird that the cat somehow never ate. So now go back to the question we left at the wall. How do you be still while the threat is still standing right there? How do you lower your hands while the army is still in the valley? And here is the answer the whole song was built around. Harpu was never a command to feel calm. You can't feel calm with an empire at your gate, and God knew that. It was not a command to feel brave. It was not a command to feel peaceful. It was not a command to feel anything at all. It was a command about the hands. He was asking them to do something much harder and much simpler. To let go of a fight they were never strong enough to win. To stop trying to be the rescue. To drop their hands not because the threat wasn't real, but because the rescue was his and not theirs. That is the stillness, not the absence of the army. The open hand in the middle of it. And maybe you already know exactly what that feels like. It is 3 a.m, and you are wide awake running the same problem in circles for the 100th time. Turning the same letter over and over, looking for the reply that finally fixes it. Gripping the wheel of a life you cannot actually steer, certain that if you just clench a little harder, think a little longer, carry a little more, you can hold the whole thing together. And the verse on the pillow rolls over and says the thing it was always saying under the noise all along. Let go. Drop your hands. Not because it doesn't matter, because it was never yours to carry alone. There's one more thing in this song worth noticing before we close. 3 times in Psalm 46, the music stops. There's a small word planted in the margin, Selah. Nobody is completely sure how to translate it, but most agree it marks a pause. A deliberate rest. A place where the singers stop, and the sound hangs in the air, and you are meant to sit in the silence for a beat before the next line. Think about that. Even the song about letting go was built with letting go inside it. Little gaps where nothing happens on purpose. The psalm doesn't just tell you to drop your hands. It makes you do it 3 times while you listen. So here is what I want you to take with you. First, the plain truth of it. Be still is not a relaxation cue. It is a battlefield command. The Hebrew harpu means drop your hands, release your grip, stop striving. And it was first sung over a city that could hear an army breathing outside the wall. Every soft pillow version of this verse is borrowing the words of people in the worst trouble of their lives. Second, what that means for you. The thing you're gripping the hardest right now, the problem you keep turning over at 3 a.m, the outcome you're sure will fall apart if you stop holding it up. That is almost certainly the exact thing this verse is asking you to release. Not the small stuff, the thing your knuckles are white around. That's the one. And third, the part I most want to stay with you. Stillness was never the absence of the storm. The army was still in the valley when the song was sung. The sea was still in front of them. The letter was still full of threats. Stillness is not what happens when the trouble leaves. It is the open hand in the middle of the trouble that hasn't left yet. It is what's left when you finally stop pretending you can win a fight that was never yours to win, and you find out the hard way in the middle of it exactly who was fighting it for you all along. So let me ask you the question, and I really do want your answer. What is the one thing you keep gripping, the thing you cannot seem to set down, that this verse just asks you to let go of? Tell me in the comments. I read them. The sons of Korah finished their song. The army never came over the wall, and the line they left behind has been read in quiet rooms ever since by people who think it's asking them to relax. It was never asking you to relax. It was asking you to let go.